Well, so nice to be with each of you. Let's just do this before we start. Let's close our eyes, feel into our bodies, and just notice what's here. Just inviting everything just to come to a place of silence, a place of peace. It's gently connecting with your essence. It's this quiet, awake, aware essence. Just noticing what that's like. Step away from the human condition to step into the truth of your being. What is that like? In a compassionate way, I encourage you to soften and feel. If there's anything you're struggling with, see if you can melt a little bit around that. Let go of any grasping or fighting or trying to control or manipulate life or your own self. So just feeling and softening. And letting go. The same way leaves fall off trees this time of year. Just let any tension fall away, any struggle fall away. I encourage you to breathe a little bit more deeply into your belly, into your root. Just gently trusting that everything will take care of itself. Softening, opening, trusting. So just taking one more deep, full breath. Just smiling at your human self, not making it a problem. Smiling and melting into your divine self. Yes. Well, so nice to be with each of you here. You can open your eyes or keep them closed, whatever feels comfortable to you. Whatever you do, I encourage you to be fully here in this moment. Let us see what comes forward. A part of being connected with nature, living in nature, like I do, is being connected to the seasons. So here in Colorado, it snowed, I think, on Friday, and I have this big mountain outside of my house. And was covered in snow. Down where I live, at the kind of the side of the mountain, there's still green grass and aspen trees turning yellow. And then if I look out in the opposite direction of the mountains is a big desert. And the beautiful thing about living where I live is when the seasons change, it becomes pretty immediate. It's in a sense in your face. And fall is one of my favorite seasons, even though I guess I like them all. Winter I'm not so fond of, but the thing about fall is it's such a great time just to notice life letting go, the trees letting go, and making way for something new. And that new thing, of course, in fall and winter, at least where I live, it's a period of going inward, it's a period of hibernation. Fall in particular is a time where it's out with the old. And trees, they don't try hard to hold on to their leaves. They trust that it's safe to let go. And then we're going to walk into the coolness, the coldness of winter. And eventually something new will come again in the spring. There's a natural intelligence in that. Natural intelligence. And so this time it's a reminder for all of us. What is it that I need to let go of? What is it that's old and kind of stale? What is it that's, maybe it worked this summer, but it's certainly not going to work coming into winter. So this is a great question for inquiry. What is life inviting me to let go of? And I walk many times outside during the day. And when I was out earlier today, I just see these little mini grove of aspen trees down the street from my home. And the cool wind is blowing through the air, and it just creates such a Zen-like moment to see the leaves gently falling to the earth. Gently falling into the earth and composting. So a great question for each of us to ask is, well, what's here that I could let go of? What's here that I'm ready to be done with? For those of you in Australia, what's here that wants to come forward? As you all are going into springtime, what's here that wants to come forward? What's new and fresh? For the rest of us, it's what's here that wants to fall away. Wants to fall away. What's here that I'm ready to surrender at the feet of the Divine Mother? What's here? And to really sit with that question and see what comes up for you. Being human that's such a funny thing. Like we are built almost entirely out of habits. Sri Aurobindo, he used to speak and say that there's two great forces in the universe: the force of habit, just force of repetition, and then there's the force of evolution, of something new coming. The force of habit and the force of evolution. And in between those two, of course, is us surrendering. To move out of habit and into something greater. Excuse me, we have to be willing to surrender what isn't working. What isn't working. And so this is a great time to reflect on that. Like, what is it in my life that's not working? Sometimes it's our thoughts. Sometimes it's a belief system. Sometimes it's something we're holding on to. Sometimes it's just the habit of, it's not going to change. It's always going to be this way. Well, is that true? Like, is that true? It's always going to be this way. Of course not. Life is always in change, even if it's really slow change at times. And so sometimes that's what we have to surrender. We have to surrender that. This idea that we want it to change right here, right now. By the end of the year, I want to be fully and completely enlightened and liberated of this pain. Sometimes we have to surrender our idea of time. And that's a big one. I can remember when God was breaking that down in me. Normally, when God wants us to surrender our idea of time, God gives us something that we can't heal and we can't fix. It just kind of drags on and on and on and on and on. It's like, oh, and we want it to be done and done and done and done and done. This moment, right here, right now. And God reminds us, I'm the boss, I'm the doer. I'm the boss, I'm the doer. You're certainly welcome to give God feedback and put forth your intention and use your manifestation skills and this and that. But at the end of the day, it's God's hand that moves this world. And that's humbling. That's humbling. And a great question for us is, are we in alignment with God's hand, with God's will? Or are we fighting it? Are we in alignment with it, or are we fighting it? And a reminder I like to give everyone, I spoke about this on Friday, is that God wants to give us all a greater life. So the falling away is simply to make room for something better, something greater. The whole purpose of falling away is to make room for evolution. The evolution of the soul, the evolution of the consciousness, the evolution of God's will. And so if we trust in this, we have a much smoother ride. The whole nervous system relaxes. If we fight with it, the nervous system tenses and we just suffer more. It's just kind of basic math on the path. You resist and you're going to have a heck of a time. You go with the flow of it, it still may be difficult, but it will be less difficult, and you'll get where you want to be, which is where God wants you to be, much sooner. Okay. So I have a number of questions. If you have a question, I invite you to bring it forward. And so you can raise your hand. And we'll see what's here. And I just have to remember to get to the email questions at the end. So if you have a question, I ask that it's clear and direct, succinct. And let's see. Let's hear from Ben. Are you here, Ben?
I'm here. Howdy, Craig. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Hi. Um, so my question is, for I think almost the past year, I've been noticing this sort of energetic constriction in my throat. It kind of comes and goes. Sometimes it's more intense, sometimes it's less. It doesn't feel like it has a really clear like emotional valence to it, or necessarily story to go with it. I've spent a fair bit of time sitting with it, and I just like can't seem to get a foothold um, to work with it. And so I'm wondering if you have any guidance or advice for working with something like this.
Yeah, tell me again what it feels like.
It's like it's a feeling of constriction. Like I feel like I can feel it affecting like the register of my voice. Um, like it feels like my voice is sitting kind of like high in my throat rather than being kind of down in my chest.
Yes. So Ben, do you trust in God
I'm going to
fully
take
and
that.
completely in every aspect of
No,
your life?
no, absolutely not.
Okay, there you go.
Absolutely not.
Okay, yeah. So that's what it's about. Yeah. So the throat chakra, if you look at like pop psychology or pop spirituality on the internet, they'll say it's all about expression, the
Right.
throat chakra. Um, but what the throat chakra is really about is, do you trust in God?
Hmm.
Do you trust? And there's a funny link between trust and expression. Like when you trust that you are fully safe here on planet Earth, you tend to express freely and openly. But, if you focus on expression, just like, it might not really get to it.
Mm-hmm.
But do
That
you
resonates.
trust? Yeah. So do you trust in God? And like when we don't trust, I'm going to say something that's going to sound a little bit silly, but just kind of, just, the PC police, just please, just relax a little bit. But I'm going to say something a little bit silly. So as a little kid, like if we trust in daddy, like if we trust in mommy, we're going to be really open. We're just going to talk. Just, we're going to, our throat chakra is going to feel really open. We're going to feel safe. But when we don't trust in daddy, we don't trust in mommy as kids, and then later as adults, that just gets kind of projected onto life and onto God that we don't trust. And so, the throat, like as a kid, if you don't trust in mommy and daddy, you kind of have a clenched throat and you're like, I need to be quiet and not talk, maybe not be seen, not be heard. Or there's this, weird division that we make between like our thinking mind and our feeling nature. Sometimes it's we have so much feeling in us and we can't express it. So we got to close our throat and just hang out in our head and think. That's what most people do, is they kind of try to think their way out of life. Whereas with trust, we open our hearts, we listen to our heart, and our heart's just like, will lead you like in the right direction. Or we just open ourselves to God, just trusting like, hey, I'm just going to do what I do. And I want to trust that it all works itself out. I trust that it all works itself out. And, there's a grace in that. There's a grace in that. And so if we look at healing, healing this, you're just beginning to have a conversation with God, with life. Something as simple as, like, Lord, will you show me the way? Will you show me the way? Will you come into my life and lead me and guide me on the highest path? Something like that. It's kind of sweet and open, and it's almost just like you're asking for support here on planet Earth. Like, Lord, will you come in and lead me and guide me on the highest road? And keep in mind, God's road and your highest road and like your greatest heart's desire, it is all one. It's all one. People have this idea of surrendering and opening and ego death and dying and all this crazy ideas. Sometimes certain Zen teachers really emphasize it. You know, if you really look at it, it's like we're opening to grace. We're opening to grace. We're opening to that which is greater. And it takes humility, you know, so humility, a lot of people think humility is like a quality of the heart, but humility is really a quality deep in the belly. It's kind of just a deep surrendering in the belly and trusting, just trusting in the movement and the intelligence of God, and knowing that we, you know, like the human egoic nature, like we don't have it all sorted out. Like our head, you know, our mind, our egoic nature tries to think its way through everything. But when you come into the belly, there's like kind of like this deep letting go, just trusting that. You know, if I do what's wise, I listen to my heart, things kind of work themselves out in alignment with that which is best, that which is highest. And, you know, a different way of saying this, you know, like I say, if we were going to be good Buddhists or Zen people, is trusting in yourself fully. And by yourself, again, I mean your hara, like deep in your belly, deep in your gut, because that voice and God's voice are one. So trusting deep within you that I'm going to be okay. Life is going to be okay. Like for some people, they have a really hard time with God. But trusting like deep in your belly, in your innate goodness, I'm going to be okay. Life is going to be okay. And just feeling into that, just feeling like I'm going to be okay. Life's going to be okay. And so, anything else around that, my friend, or anything else you want to share? Hey, let me see if
I think that resonates. I think part of what I've been working through is a relationship that I had with a teacher a few years ago that I'm realizing was not clean.
yeah.
And I think it really rattled my trust in myself and kind of my trust in the path.
Yeah.
And so figuring out how to heal that and
Yeah.
figuring out sort of what's trustworthy again, I think
Yeah.
has been a lot of the work and
Yeah.
continues to be.
Yeah. So Ben, I want to just ask you a question. So the teacher you were with, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think you said they were out of integrity in one way or another. So when did you first realize this? Was it near the end or was it early on or?
This is near the end.
Oh, it's near the end.
I actually it was really confusing. Like I worked with him for about a year and then I just sort of had enough. I stepped away for a while and then he kind of came back into my life briefly. And that's when I was like, wait, something is off here. Like I needed to step away and then see it with different eyes.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you again. I want you to think about that first year when you were with this teacher. Was there anything within you that knew something was off? Or did he just make like one big mistake at the end?
I think part of what was confusing was I kind of wasn't like, there were things that didn't feel good. And at the time, I felt like, well, this guy's just poking my ego in ways that I don't like. And that was how he framed it as well. But I also noticed that I got sort of more and more, like rather than getting like more open and sort of like I started to contract. I got more anxious. I got more dependent.
Yeah.
And I think it was very like, it was subtle and it was confusing. It wasn't like clear, like this was wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. No, that's good. That's good. Because those, when it's subtle and it's unclear and it's, there's kind of some games there. It is confusing. It's confusing for you. It's probably confusing for them as well. And that's kind of like the old school approach with spirituality, is the teacher harasses the student. And, what I've come to realize is we get enough harassment from life.
Yes.
And I don't need extra harassment from my spiritual teacher. It's kind of a fair thing to do if you live in the monastery, or if you live in a way where it's just you and your teacher. But still, it's just a little outdated in the modern age, and tends to cause a lot of confusion in the student. And so that's unfortunate. The reason I kept asking about the time frame is oftentimes we know, like when things start going in the wrong direction, we normally know immediately. And it's important for us, like if we do see that, and I'm not saying it did happen with you, but if we do see that, to listen to that place inside. Because when we listen to that place inside, our throat chakra will stay open, our belly will stay open, we'll feel safe. There'll just be a sense of like, I'm listening to me, I'm taking care of me, I'm protecting me. It's a self-love thing as well. I trust in me. And when you trust in yourself and your own, say, faculties, or your sense of awareness and your own clarity, it just builds a healthy sense of self-esteem, which again keeps that throat chakra open. But when we give our power away to a teacher, which is common on the path, sometimes that could be helpful because it helps us to learn real quickly. But then if they start playing games with us, it just gets really confusing, and then we get hurt. And the normal thing is the human being makes a mistake, and I'm going to say the teacher makes a mistake in this case, but then the student shuts down. And it's important to question, like, okay, so that guy screwed up. Like, do I need to shut down? Like, do I need to close myself off from God? Like, why would I close myself off to God? I may need to go to a different church or sangha or down the street, or maybe I need to open directly to the source. But a lot of people on the path, they play this game. And I can remember even just, I was a high school teacher for a moment in history. And one day, I broke all the rules as a high school teacher. I talked about God every day at school. And we were talking about Jesus one day, and this kid came up to me and he told me, he's like, Craig, I hate Jesus. And I was like, my God, hate Jesus? Why? It's like, well, these Christians, they were telling me I was going to hell because I smoked. And I was like, okay, well, those were the Christians. That's not Jesus. Let's not close our heart to Jesus if some foolish people said something foolish. And so the same way with, like, if a teacher, if I say the wrong thing, please don't close your heart to God. You might just say, oh, Greg was a little bit confused there. And if I'm repeatedly or repetitively confused, then I encourage you to, go on down the block and see if there's something better, something that doesn't have so much psychological obstructions in it. And, it's like we're all human, and all teachers are human, and teachers will make mistakes. But sometimes there's things that are just not supportive. And so sometimes you're with a teacher for a little bit and you learn some good things. Maybe they teach you how to meditate and how to open. But then when they're doing something that's not really jiving with you, again, no reason to close, but maybe reason to go down the street. And so anyways, Well, thanks, Ben. Thanks for sharing
Yeah,
yourself. And anything else around that?
that's good for now. Thank you.
Yeah. Good to see you.
Yeah.
Good to see you. Yeah, it's a tough one on the path. There's something it's like extra heartbreaking when we experience pain or egoic confusion, from our teacher or a priest, a rabbi, or whoever it is. It cuts really deep because we are so open, say with the Sangha or with the teacher, which is the ideal way. It's like when I was with my teacher, it was just radically open. And when the teacher does something out of alignment with truth, it can really hurt. And so one of the ways of helping that throat chakra to stay open or helping ourselves to heal is to really feel the pain of that and acknowledge, like, gosh, that hurt so bad. I really love this teacher, this teaching, and this song, and really, admit how much you loved this path or this teacher and how much it hurt. And for many of us, we have to go through a healthy grieving process. The same way, like if you're in, say, a romantic relationship and you break up, and it's important to fully grieve the person. If we don't fully grieve the person, then we can't, go out and come into relationship again. Or if we do so, we'll be jaded. We'll be jaded, and we don't want to be jaded on the path, especially in relationship to God. And so it's important to give ourselves, whatever time we need to grieve the fact that, gosh, like, that really hurt. I really like that. And, and that, that's really brutal. And just to feel all the tears and let the tears kind of wash over your heart. And then you'll naturally be open again. But if we don't grieve, sometimes we just kind of clench and then don't trust. And then we're really confused for a while because we're like, I should be trusting, but I can't. And often we can't until we grieve first. And one of the things that happens through grief, I'm a big fan of grieving as a part of the path, is it teaches us that we are okay. Like, we're okay. You don't know that before you grieve. You know that after you grieve. Like, you fall down, you get hurt. Gosh, my heart broke so bad with this love affair I had with my teacher. And you feel all the pain and you grieve it. And then you get to the other side and you realize, okay, I am okay. I'm okay. They're okay. I'm going to do my thing. They're going to do their thing. But fundamentally, I'm okay. I'm so okay. I can stay open. I'm so okay. I realize I outlived, a painful, messy experience. And that okay, eventually it leads into strength and a wonderful quality of Buddha nature. It's like this Buddha power and this strength and this nobility, and eventually indestructibility. And so anyways, thanks for sharing your heart with us today. Yeah. All right. And one of the things I can say to everyone in the Sangha, this is a reflection of this. I will ask for forgiveness for the times I butcher things or drop the ball or get confused or say the wrong thing or just, get completely off in my own self. Please forgive me as well, because I certainly am human. Certainly am. And it's heartbreaking. Sometimes we try our best and sometimes we just screw it up, myself included. So, all right. Let's hear from Kyle. Kyle, are you here?
Yes, I am. Hey, everybody. So my question tonight is about kind of jumping off of what Ben was saying in terms of stepping into your own power, and kind of, I guess, deeply accepting your unique path, um, versus like hearing like, oh, that's not spiritual. The spiritual path is, needs to be this way. And then like for me, in my path.
I'm sorry, Kyle, will you just say that first part again? Because I think I got confused right out of the gates here.
So yeah, let me try to clear it up. So like me stepping into my own unique power, and having uniqueness on my path versus like, being pressured to do things that are spiritual.
Pressured by who?
I guess like the spiritual community, and seeing like, and just like seeing like pressure from, I guess, maybe like the non-dual community, or people who talk about spirituality, and like that becomes almost like an identity in itself.
Yeah.
Like the meditator or the spiritual person. And then for me, when I really feel into it, like there's some unique things about my path, like running is a big part of it, I realized. And then like before I was like kind of judging myself, is running a spiritual thing, and then, so I guess I'm just kind of saying, like, is part of stepping into your power also like just deeply accepting your own unique path?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's funny, I was speaking with Robbie. I don't know if he's here tonight, but Robbie in the group, and he was speaking about like watching what is it, like UFC stuff, like like fighting. And we were talking about say the path of a warrior. The path of a warrior might not be the same as the path of a meditator or the path of the yogi. The path of the warrior is kind of violent, kind of crazy. But I can say, and I'm learning more and more, like I knew when I was young that I had this warrior in me. And my teacher used to always call me a spiritual warrior. I kind of put it down at some point. Now I'm picking it back up again. I realize, oh yeah, this is actually a big part of my nature. A big part of my nature. And, it's easy to judge. It's easy to compare one path to another. But your job is just to follow your heart, your truth. To follow it and to trust in it. And I mean, if we're talking about the non-dual spiritual community, it's like, my God, please don't listen to them. Listen to yourself. Listen to your heart. And listen to your heart. And can running be a part of the path? Oh, absolutely. I've talked to many people that said they go out and run in nature. Their mind just goes silent. Mind goes silent. They just run. And they run like the wind, and they just become the wind. And there's this energy of life just running through them. And if that's a part of your path, I encourage you to live that fully. To live it fully. There was even a Tibetan a yogi here in Colorado that wrote a book about running. It might have been one of Chogyam Trungpa's sons. I think it's in that lineage, in the Shambhala lineage. And so that's part of your deal, then embrace it. Embrace it fully. Yeah. Anything else you want to share about that? Or?
Yeah, I also don't want to attach to it too much, even though I enjoy it. I don't want to identify as a runner necessarily, or even like, I don't even want to really talk about like people ask, how many miles do you run? I'd be like, I don't know.
Yeah, good.
I just enjoyed my run,
Good, good. Yeah, that's the shadow side of running is, I have to get this many miles in a week. And the same shadow with meditation, need to get this many hours in a week or whatever it is. And people, it's funny, like runners, road bikers, meditators, they play like real similar games, in the shadows. It's just, they just want to get the time in and want to get the miles in. And it's a funny thing. I live in a town where, the town god is a bicycle. And so everyone's just trying to, get as many miles in on the bike as they can. And it's like, well, like I rode my bike today with my little girl, and I had an absolutely divine time. And we might have went 2, maybe 3 miles, but I just loved it, just being out there in the desert and, just pedaling with her, and the stillness and the blue sky and then the clouds rolling in, and, seeing a little bunny rabbit running in the sage bushes. It's, to me, that's what life's about. And so, I had no identity as a mountain biker or this or that, but just to enjoy it. So please, and just enjoy it, be yourself with it. Yeah. You'll find that, like for many of us, if we're on the path long enough, we realize that enlightenment is about you being you fully and completely. Just you being you fully and completely. And, it's just like you love yourself. When I was young, let me see if I can do this. This is what I wanted to be. I wanted to be like Almaas, some great guru, I'll show you again. Great guru, this great master performing miracles. And I realized pretty quickly, like, I'm not going to pull that off. I'm not going to pull that off in this lifetime. And I wasn't born a living saint. And so, I need to let go of this. And the more I gave myself permission just to be me, the happier I was, the freer I was. And the ego really relaxes, like deeply lets go, when you let yourself just be who you are. You let yourself be who you are. And if you ever go, to a spiritual conference, or it's nice in person, but I guess you could do this online too. Maybe it's quicker online. I taught at a conference a couple of weeks ago, but you see all the different teachers, they have this different expressions of divinity. And some of them are so different. So different. And just to see that, like, oh, like no one's conforming here. Like everyone is just being themselves. Being themselves. And that's the key to happiness, is you being you. You living your life. Not somebody else's. Not somebody else's. The quickest road to failure is live someone else's life. So anyways, anything else, Kyle, you want to share?
No, I just reminded me of the one time that you said that you were painting at your teacher's retreat center, and you were like thinking, oh, this is a really good paint job. And then your teacher was like, Craig, are you a painter or are you a great soul? And I was thinking of that when I was running, like, Kyle, are you a runner? No, you're a great soul.
Yeah.
I started laughing.
Yeah, that's the truth. And I can say this in a funny way. I've always wanted to be a runner, and it just looks so graceful, but my body just will not do it. My body won't do it. I try a couple of times a year to go out and start and do it for a couple of weeks, and it's just so hard on my back and my nervous system because I've beat it up in the past. But it's a funny thing, you know, it's like, what are we? What are we? Why are we out here? What are we doing? And so anyways, will you go out and you run a little bit for me, will you, Kyle?
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Good to see you, my friend.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Nice to have you. All right. Okay. All right. Okay, I'm just going to do an email question just so I don't forget it. Hi, Craig. I have a question about spiritual practice in the Kundalini process. There's a lot online that says you must do yoga or meditate. Oh, this is good. This piggybacks onto Kyle's question. I meditate every day, but I do not do yoga. And I worry that if I don't do the work, in quotes, correctly, in quotes, I may fall off the path of awakening. So my question is really about the work, in quotes. Are there things one must do? Or is most of the work being done through grace and we just have to participate in the process? Well, that's great. So it's absolutely being done by grace and you must participate in the process. But most of us don't realize that until the very end, until when grace is just leading us all the time. So in the beginning, yeah, it's important to have, you know, a little bit of effort. So we're not just hanging out, you know, smoking the Satan's lettuce, whatever some other fun words for that are, and just lounging on the couch and messing around, you know. It's important to, you know, put the right foot forward. If you meditate every day, you know, say you're doing something really good. But the question goes, but I don't do yoga. Yeah, that's all right. That's all right. And so the thing with yoga, if we look at, well, what does meditation do and what does yoga do? Like yoga reminds us about being inwardly flexible. Inwardly flexible. That's a great thing. But do we need to do the asanas? Absolutely not. If you feel called to do the asanas, or if you're feeling really grumpy or stiff or agitated, and if the Kundalini seems like it's getting stuck in different places in the body, it can be helpful to do some yoga. It can also be helpful just to go out and go for a run like Kyle's doing. That really can open up the nervous system. If you're like me, we're running, feels like it beats up the nervous system. It's like, okay, let's do a little bit of yoga, or let's just do some, you know, a walk in nature. Or my funnest yoga, or my favorite yoga asana, is just to lay on the earth. Just lay on the earth and let yourself be held. And I like you right, Nick, at the end of your question. Just lay in grace, open to grace. And so the work is different for everyone. It's different for everyone. And so you have to look at this question, well, what is your work? Your work is going to be your obstacle, like the thing you trip over, your attachments, again, the thing you trip over, the thing where there's tightness, you know, in a different chakra center, like we spoke about in the beginning. And so to do the yoga of investigation, as we feel into the energetic body, we just notice, where is energy stuck? Where am I not flowing? Where do I feel constricted? Or a different way of asking is, where do I not have access to myself? Like some people are completely numb from the throat down. Others are numb from the heart chakra down. So it's important to really look at that. Like, am I numb? Like, oh, I've shut off like half of my body. And if you're shut off to your body, you're shut off to God. Your body is how you connect. You know, the subtle energetic body is how we connect to God. So yoga is simply an investigation of that, and that can be done through mindfulness or somatic work, massage, exercise, martial arts. Sometimes just sitting there realizing, oh, I'm really tight. Many times, I'm challenged by this particular person in life. And yoga may simply be, or the work may simply be just investigating this. Say, well, why do I tense up here? What is this about? I'm letting this other person have power over me and it's shutting me down. And so anyways, open, open, open. I'm a big fan of discipline. I'm a big fan of showing up. But discipline must be gentle and come from the heart. And like Kyle was saying, we don't want to live or walk someone else's path. But in the beginning, it's good to listen to others and say, well, what do they know? Looks like they know something. Maybe I should try some of those practices and see. But eventually, spiritual practice becomes less like work and more, it just feels like a wonder. Like even when I'm sitting with great pain within my own body or someone else's, there's a feeling of great wonder there, spaciousness and awe, curiosity. How is God going to unfold or unravel? How's this experience going to open up? What is it going to teach me? And so when we have an attitude like this, the quote unquote work doesn't seem like work. It more seems like, oh, as I open up, I get something greater. I experience something greater. Greater freedom, greater peace, greater emptiness, greater silence. And to me, like the spiritual path, it never seems like work. It seems like a relief. Like if we were alcoholics, it's like that beer on a Friday night after work. It's like, oh yeah, I'm so happy to have this. And so eventually spiritual practice just becomes like that. It just feels like relief from the chaos of life, or the difficulty of life. Anyways, okay. Let's see, Tom, are you here? Let's see, again, a reminder that questions are clear and succinct. You here, Tom?
Yeah. Hi. Yeah.
Yeah, there you are. Hi, Tom.
Hi. Okay. So, like all my questions, this has a somatic element, so I can feel it in my body when I'm asking the question.
Good.
It's about alignment. I've often felt like throughout the whole awakening, to be honest, that I'm like simultaneously on like a knife edge and being held at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And as it's continued, it's sort of come, it's been there almost the whole time. And I'm wondering whether this is an aspect of like the horror waking up, where there's just fear that's coming through, that's giving you the impression that you're on a knife edge, or if it's always going to be like that. And just an example from my life recently, I did some yoga at the beach, and afterwards I felt a lot of energy moving, and it was kind of a fearful type of energy just coming through. And I was just walking it off, and then this drunk guy just came up and confronted me out of nowhere. And then later, this pit bull was like barking at me, and I was sitting in the fear, and I was just walking and just letting the fear unravel. But it kind of made me feel like, is this when you talk about living awake, you have to be perfectly aligned, like, because I can feel even if my thought goes off track a little bit, or if my action goes off track a little bit, I feel it really acutely. And, of all of the awakened masters that have lived, I keep thinking of Christ, and I keep thinking like, oh my God, if I take one wrong step here, am I going to end up sort of having a fate like that? And yeah, so I guess I'm just wondering, is this something that we will always live with if we're awake, of that having to be so finely aligned? Or is it something that as the fear leaves, then we feel much more safe and secure just in the world?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. So yeah. So like, I don't ever feel like I'm on a razor's edge and, like this decision, I have to make it, or I'm going to fall off into, the pits of hell or samsara or anything like that. To me, it feels completely safe. And even if I mess up, which I do, I'm caught, I'm held, I'm loved, I'm absolutely supported. And so for me, there's a great sense of that you can't even really make a mistake. Now, of course you can, but just the felt experience is that all is well, even when it's not well. Now, I will say this, that in the initial stages of awakening, I do know and remember, I have to work to remember that kind of razor's edge feeling. And I could watch, like, oh, if I have a thought in the wrong direction, and if I give myself permission to fall into that fantasy of thought, I might just spend a whole day just spinning out in craziness or nonsense. But even, if I say, like, made that mistake, after you outlive the consequences of it, you realize, oh, there's room for that also. There's room for life to be messy. There's room for me to grow, which means I'm going to make some mistakes and I'm going to learn from them. And there's a great softness around it all. Now, that razor's edge has a purpose. Is it kind of teaches you an inward discipline. And that's a good thing, especially in the initial stages of awakening, where you see very clearly, oh, if I fall in this direction, it ended disastrously. At least for the day it did. But then you outlive that day and you realize, big picture, it's not that big a deal. Not that big a deal. And so there's a trust and a knowing. And also there's an understanding too, that when you choose in alignment, life is always easier. When you choose out of alignment, life is always more difficult. And so there's just a natural kind of thing that happens within the soul or the individual, where it's just like, yeah, the spiritual path is not work. Like the previous question, what is work is to live the egoic life. That is tremendous work. Like, some people are like, oh, I wish I could just go back asleep into my ego. And I'm like, that's a hell realm. Like, to live in truth, it doesn't take any work at all. There's a sense of absolute relief. Absolute relief. You realize, like, if I go the wrong direction, it's going to hurt. If I go the right direction, it's going to be fairly good. And if it does hurt, it's going to hurt less than had I gone the egoic way. I'm not, the kind of person that just teaches you if you're enlightened, you'll be happy and every moment of your life and pain-free and this and that, because I'm someone who lives in reality. And so I know that even great masters experience pain and suffering, like you said, the example of Christ. But that was part of Christ's, his plan, his work here on planet Earth. It's a great chance, though, that none of us will be burned on a stake or hung from a cross. So we might disappoint some friends or confuse some friends, lose some friends on the path. But normally, that's the only casualty of waking up, is we outgrow old friends and eventually attract and have new friends. So one last thing I'll say about fear is, like if we're just hanging out and there's fearful energies moving through the body, let's label that samsara in a practical sense, saying like it's not real. It's not real. It's just a feeling. It's just a feeling. Like it's not, there's nothing coming to get me in this moment. Now, if there's a pit bull that's coming at us, it's like you run, or, like I've stood on top of a truck before. When the dogs come after me, I just jump up on top of a car, or a dog can't get me, or, jump over a fence or something, And so, if there's an actual real thing like a pit bull, or the drunk guy coming, even the drunk guy's like, what does he want? Probably just wants some change. If you're in California, you might want $20, but you just keep walking. You keep walking. But if we're talking about just somatic fear, energetic fear, things coming up from the hara, it's a great time to be like the Buddha and reach down and touch the earth and say, this is what's real. The earth is what's real. I'm looking for my Shiva lingam, but I can't find it. But, like, this is what's real. But there's just feelings in my body. Well, part of being awake is realizing feelings are feelings. That's all they are. They're not reality. And so if there's a part of us that has pain or trauma around it, can we meet it with love and soften around it, breathe through it, notice the space and freedom which is here, and let the fear just empty out of us. Let it empty out of us. And again, that's can be kind of tied into that razor's edge, where if you believe in fear, you'll suffer. You might stay up all night. If you feel fear fully, you might have a little panic attack, or just, some movements, or, lose your breath for a moment. But then it passes and you realize, I'm okay. It's just kind of an eruption of energy from my hara, but it's just energy, and energy doesn't kill, doesn't harm. It just wants to flow, is all it's wanting. So anyways, beautiful Tom. Good to see you. And I was going to get to your question. You emailed me one. Did you find a place to live?
Yeah. It's funny that I felt like God was presenting me with two options, both of which had like things that I needed to work through.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually I did find one, but it's like in a studio underneath three young girls, like in their 20s.
Yeah.
And I'm feeling my hara being active at the moment, and all the sexuality stuff coming forward. And so I'm kind of like, okay, like if that's the one we're going with. But yeah, I don't know. I did a lot of work trying to feel into my heart, and there's still a part of me that wonders whether or not I made the wrong decision. But anyway, we'll just have to trust and keep walking, I guess.
Good. And see, that's what my response is going to be, is just to trust, that you can't make a mistake. Just go forward. And, if you get into like MTV real world situation, we'll talk about that, but just stay away from the drama and just, open your heart. And, it's like sometimes we have neighbors, and sometimes it's a cheerleading squad, and sometimes it's, would be something opposite of that. The old folks home, and I've lived by both, and I keep to myself though, mostly. So I don't get in too much trouble with either. I think the most trouble I've gotten in was probably at the, when I went over to the nursing home, and I was looking for the bathroom, and I stumbled into the Alzheimer's ward, and all the old ladies thought I was their husband. And I had to get out of there real quick because they were wanting to kiss me. But anyways, so you take good care of yourself, and just trust that it'll be fine. And if it's the wrong place, it'll straighten itself out soon enough. So yeah, good to see you, Tom. Yeah. Okay, David, are you here?
Hey, it's actually me.
Oh, hey, Nanette. Yeah, Dave, I see David there. Yeah.
It's the
Hi, David.
whole team. Yeah, so bear with me as I kind of try to articulate what's going on. And I don't know if there's a question, but I think I'm definitely needing some help orienting to what's going on. It feels like I've been really thrust into some tantric realms that feel new and feel kind of enormous. I am having the experience of God as like going into these internal like infernos and just meeting God like as these forces of like almost like demonic, but it's like clear, it's just like God is I don't even know how to say this, like rather than like humans are becoming God, it's like God is becoming human, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And just seeing like all of the shit I've blamed myself for my whole life, like all the conditions of my humanity and of this world, and like all the egoic like strategizing to get myself back into a state of grace, like all of that shit, and like all of the conditions are like God's creation and God's fault. And I know you've told me for a long time to blame God instead of myself, but it's just like so clear. Like I was just at a dance outside and like just seeing like all these humans, like it's just like, oh, it's like God like trying to figure out how the fuck to be a human in a good way. And it just like and also seeing like all of this like perverted shit and stuff, I've been like, oh, I have to keep that away. Like it's just blowing up through me right now. And I'm seeing like all this like crazy incest imagery and like wild stuff. And it's just like, oh, if I think this isn't God, then I am alienating myself from God.
Yeah.
And like God is fucking wild and creepy and weird as fuck. And like I don't know, I'm just like, I don't know if this is even true, but this is what my experience is showing me. And like all of this stuff, like I blame my dad for, and he's so blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh, this is just God being a crazy motherfucker and like trying to like make sense of this realm, like as God, not just like humans trying to figure it out, but like God trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
As it.
Yeah. I mean, the way I say it, Nanette, is just like something real simple, is that God chose to incarnate into an animal world. So God created an animal world with animal drives, animal desires, and God is incarnating into an animal realm, and animals, nature is wild. It's wild, it's bizarre, it's freaky, it's creepy, it's disturbing. It's like animals eat each other. And like we were watching a show on Disney the other day, and it was the papa bear trying to eat the cubs, and it's like, what the heck kind of world is this? Like he's the dad and he's trying to eat his own cubs. Like that is crazy and it's wrong, from a place of morality, but from a place of nature, it's, that's what it is. And, the way I've made sense with it is looking at, well, there's different evolutionary manifestations of God. Like we can be at the lowest rung of the ladder and just being like wild and perverse and violent and volatile, or we can be at the higher realms, and I don't mean that from a place of like what you were describing, where the strategizing and all this, but just noticing like, where does it feel good to be and to act from? Like, where does it feel good? Just like good and wholesome in your heart, and just in a healthy, happy way. Again, not super ego, spiritual super ego with all the rules kind of way, because that's a different kind of hell realm. That's the hell realm of morality and like goody two shoes land, or I don't know what to call that, but perfectionism, like that's a different type of hell realm than say the realm of say being wild. And it's just a fair question to ask, like, is this actually bad? Or is it just as it is? Or is it just say, this is how God is manifesting in the form of an animal drive in an animal world? Like what's actually going on here?
Well, I think that's what's kind of blowing my mind, is like it's clearly, like, from this perspective, not wrong. Well, there is no wrong in this from this perspective. It's just life existing and unfolding and moving towards itself and blowing itself open in sometimes like less than pleasant ways. But I think there's also just like internally in my emotional world, as I'm like brought into this like uncontrolled, God, what is the word? Yeah, just like uncontrollable realm. It's like my emotional life and these forces are like, stop trying to tamper with us, like, and let us actually just join you and join your wholeness.
Yeah.
Like, it's super overwhelming at times. But I'm just like laying there literally on the ground, just like feeling like, it feels like I'm kind of burning in hell. Like it's just this inferno experience. But it like, there's also this sense of like, just like, this is what I've been like yearning for, is just to be devoured by all of these forces that I've like spent my entire life just like squashing, basically.
Yeah. And a great question to ask is, when you're sitting in quote unquote hell and you're being quote unquote burned alive, just ask yourself, like, am I okay? Is there something here that is completely and utterly okay? Is there something here untouched by all the wild and crazy? Like, what is that thing? Like, what is that thing that's untouched by all of this? And when you really start to feel into that, sometimes you can jump in and join with, like you were describing, the human parts of self, and just be a little bit wild, be a little bit free in these departments and just flow with it. And you see, like, oh yeah, like none of this is going to kill me. None of it can kill my essence. Like my essence is so divine, so pure, so free. I'm so free I can even incarnate as a human and be, a wild, freaky, goddess, whatever. And to be it and to experience it and to play with it and see, like, oh yeah, like maybe God was bored with vast, spacious emptiness. So God tried, a roll of dice and to see what this world would be like. And we're all a part of that. We're all a part of that. But when I started to open up and realize, like, I'm okay, life's okay, then there's the freedom to be, to explore without any of that judgment or fear, or, oh my God, is going to kill me, or whatever it is. There's a freedom in being life itself, in all its holiness and also in all its wildness and everything in between. And everything in between. So anyways, anything else you want to share?
No, that's helpful. And I think, yeah, just this, I don't know, it feels like this invitation to like let myself, like, the only hell is to not fully be here.
That's right.
And I'm really feeling that, and all those parts of me that are just have made a life of resisting being here. And so I don't know, I was like up on the mountain behind our house yesterday, like smashing fucking dead trees and like screaming like, I'm a murderer. And it was like super fun. But just like really, yeah, just feeling how the true hell realm is like all of that, like the ways I'm trying to like, yeah, just control this like wild river of life that is like completely and utterly self-correcting and doesn't need to be tampering with it. And just and then in feeling like, yeah, just like that like machine like habit of controlling and just letting that burn up. I mean, it's pretty damn uncomfortable, but I'm trying to just flow with it. But there is this sense of like, stop tampering with your emotional life. And just feel the fucking feels.
Just feel it all. And that's, that's one of the things I've tried to teach from day one. It seems like something not many people get is when you feel emotions fully and completely. Like if you want the quickest path to know self, feel your human self and experience your human self fully and completely. As you do, it'll just burn itself out and you're left with the direct experience of no self. You want to have a big fat ego, try to put your ego in a box and manipulate it, give it all these rules and shoulds and shouldn'ts and morality and this and that. And you'll have, a big fat self, till the day you die.
Yeah.
But like emotions, if you let them flow, they just, they're like a Colorado River. At first, it'll be raging in the springtime, and you give it a couple of weeks or a month, and it really peters out, and it turns into a little gentle stream. Yeah. But most people don't trust that they're okay enough to let go into that stream. They think they're going to go crazy or lose their mind or be homeless or, whatever the big fears are. They're going to die. I'll be overwhelmed. It's like, okay, show me overwhelmed. Like, show me what that's like. Let's see. Let's see if something can actually overwhelm me. And the nervous system and the ego can be overwhelmed, but our essence cannot be. But it does get a little bit freaky. I'm going to say extra freaky, to use that terminology. When you start to wake up and see that you are life itself, that you are both the victim and the offender, that you are the murderer and the murdered, that you are the one giving birth and the one being born and the one taking life. And it's, it can really be disturbing to the limited sense of self. I can remember when I saw that I was the source of all violence and the source of all love and destroying universes and creating universes. Like, oh my God, like this is what I am. Like, this is what we are. Not I, Craig, but all of us. We're really open. There's one thing to open to nothingness, but it's a different thing to open to being life.
Yeah.
And life is, like you said, it's wild, it's crazy, it's disturbing, it's beauty, it's holy, it's so divine, it's so magnificent, everything in between. And egoic nature really falls to pieces because it can't contain that. The egoic nature is very good at being, I'm good or I'm bad. I'm worthy or unworthy. I'm better than or worse than. It likes to be one or the other. But when you realize you're everything, it's very dismantling for the sense of self in a good way, in a healthy way, in a healing way, in a free way. It's so beautiful. So yeah, enjoy the ride. And it's, this part of the path tends to be really messy. Sometimes, at this stage, like we put our foot in our mouth, we say the wrong thing. And that'd be great for you with all the perfectionism you have, is to just, be a hot mess and then realize, and I'm okay.
Yeah. That's kind of what life is like.
Yeah.
Forcing me to do. And yeah, it's odd. Like as I see that, like I am and God is the destruction and the horror and the perversion and everything twisted and bizarre about life. Like, I don't know, there's also just this great sense of relief and depersonalization of like,
yeah,
all of those forces. It's like simultaneously it is within me and simultaneously it is vastly beyond me.
Yeah.
And it's just brought a lot of freedom and forgiveness to myself.
Yeah.
And just to like, yeah, be a fucking human being, because I didn't come here to be a swan.
Yeah, well, something most spiritual people don't want is they don't want to be human. They just want to be in heaven. And I was right there with them for a long time. And I realized, can't get to heaven unless you're first human.
Yeah.
You know, and then when I started loving being human, I'm like, oh, okay, heaven's here. It's here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
right here in the mix of it all.
Yeah, it just feels like the love can really come in when I just like anchor myself in the, like I penetrate whatever like fear or emotion or whatever is happening, just like fully immerse myself as that thing. And then it feels like the love of experience arises, even if it's kicking my ass or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, beautiful. Well, thanks for sharing yourself with us tonight.
Yeah, thanks so much. It was really helpful.
Yeah, good to see you both.
Not doing fucking bonkers. I mean, I am, but in a good way.
That's all right. In a good way. In a good way.
Thanks.
Yeah, good to see you.
You too.
Yeah, it's funny. For a long time on my path, my mantra was, "I'm crazy. I'm crazy. I'm crazy." I just felt like I was going nuts, and then I realized I'm not. It's just energy. Just energy. So, anyways, good to see you all. I'm trying to see here. I think something popped up in the chat. Let me see. It's Justina saying that sounds amazing, Annette. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, it is amazing. Okay. Let me just check and make sure I got to everything I was supposed to. Looks like I did. Just a gentle reminder, everyone, this coming Wednesday is the first it's the first Wednesday of the month. And on those Wednesdays, I do 2 meditations, one at lunchtime in Colorado and an evening in Europe. And also I do an evening one in Colorado. So 2 on Wednesday, if you want to come sit and open and be a part of the Sangha, we'd love to have you. Anyways, my heart's with you all. Thank you all for the love and the support and generosity. Until next time, much love to each and every one of you. Goodbye, everyone. Good to see you. Bye for now.